Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. Today in the hashtag 2 years ago today CW series, we're obviously dealing with June 26, 2018, and it's really just a simple entry. It's where Watts lets his co-worker Troy McCoy know that he'd landed the previous night. I think when he says landed last night, I don't think he's saying I landed on June 25th. I think he's saying I landed last night, being at night, earlier today, at 2 a.m. And he says, I'm around all day if you need to ask me something. And then McCoy replied, okay, cool, buddy, get some rest. So what's, again, very fascinating here is the late night arrival, around about the exact same time. The Watts couple arrive home as Shanann would arrive on the morning of her death. Now, I've already gone over the potential criminal intertextuality of, what's being sort of literally a witness walking through the return, from the airport home with Shanann. I've already gone through that. I'm not going to do that again. What I do want to talk about is the second part of that message, where his co-worker says to him, McCoy says to him, buddy, get some rest. And Watts responds, you're crazy, kids are out of control. And it's kind of offhand remark from McCoy. McCoy's just saying, you got home early in the morning, you obviously haven't had much sleep, get some rest. And Watts is kind of sarcastic, but Watts one doesn't really get the sense that Watts is often that sarcastic, if that makes sense. Watts doesn't often make scathing or critical remarks. And so when he does, it seems to suggest that he's feeling quite strongly about something. So what I'm trying to get at is, some people can make scathing remarks sort of ordinarily, that they just sort of make these remarks constantly. I don't really get the sense that Watts did that. I could be wrong, but if you go through all his messages, if you look at his interviews, he doesn't seem like that kind of person, a kind of a snarky kind of person. The woman in this story, Shanann and Kessinger, seem to be a bit more capable of, if not sarcasm, then I guess irony, like just saying things with a bit of a twist, if that makes sense. What seems more just fairly a standard guy, there's not much more to him. It's sort of what you see is what you get in terms of the way that he presents things. I'm not saying what you see is what you get in terms of his, that there isn't another side to him. I'm just saying he's not often sarcastic. Even when he was interrogated and so on, he didn't often lose his cool. He didn't often get irritated or make sort of snarky remarks. Does that make sense? So where he says to McCoy, you're crazy, kids are out of control, I think that is a lot more significant than just a chance remark. Bear in mind that a month and about 3 weeks from the time that he made this remark, he murdered both his children. And so think about the thing where him and his wife have gone on this vacation. They arrive home at 2. Their children are going to be up basically 3 or 4 hours later. And, it's a situation where he's not going to get any rest. And think about the word rest just in a general sense. Just think about Watts's having an affair. He's got to hide that from his wife. He and then just the sense of he's not getting rest while he's with his family. I'm not necessarily saying that he's getting rest when he's with Kissinger, but something is happening with her that's not happening with his family. Besides sex, I mean, I think he's getting rejuvenated. I think a part of him is being brought back to life. And I think what's also quite interesting to bear in mind is on July 4th, Kissinger was in his house. So barely a week after this, Kissinger was in his house, according to her, talking about diet plans and so on. It's something I did in the Kissinger tapes. Today, episode 15. And it just shows that what Watts wanted to concentrate on kind of was himself. He wanted to concentrate on his weight, on his appearance, on fitness, and to some extent on his affair with Kissinger, right? And being with his children meant he couldn't do that. And I've been in a strange situation where I'm not going to say that raising a little dog, a little puppy, is anything as arduous as raising a child, let alone many children. But I can tell you it is pretty arduous. And, unless you're doing it, it's not a big deal. Like somebody else telling you, yeah, I've got a puppy at home, it's not a big deal. But if you're the one who's doing it, I can tell you for a fact I'm not getting much rest. I'm nodding off multiple times a day out of kind of exhaustion. And I wouldn't say that it's lack of sleep, although I think lack of sleep is part of it. But I think a big part of it is simple exhaustion. And, there's a simple way out of that exhaustion, which is when you start becoming either neglectful or, I guess, nasty, where you just put the dog outside and leave him. And I don't want to do that. To some extent, I don't really have the choice to do that because I stay in a complex. But also, I don't want to put him outside and have him sort of barking. It's still a very small little dog anyway. But what I'm trying to say is that that feeling can be quite stressful, right? And it can be even more stressful when you've got another project on the go. So in other words, it's stressful enough raising children in a happy marriage. It's a lot more stressful, I think, raising children when you are already sort of trading out of your marriage. I think you're just less wanting to put up with it because you're already starting to step out of it, and your mind isn't in your marriage. And I can sort of tell you with this little puppy, there's something that's a little bit like that, which is I'm trying to write a book, and it's very difficult to concentrate when I've got to be very vigilant about this little dog. And there's a simple price to pay for not being vigilant. So if I get too caught up in my little universe of true crime, then the dog, I'm not going to be receptive to the dog basically indicating that he needs to go outside to do his business. So there's a simple kind of reward for not paying attention in my case, and that is I will have to pick up excrement and clean up urine, right? So I've got to pay attention to him, and there's a price for that attention. And the price is I can't work the way that I used to be able to work, and you can't write a book with 70 or 80% attention. You need 100% attention. So that can create a kind of a tension where you say, "Well, something's got to give here." And in this case, I've put my work aside. I mean, I know this puppy's not going to be a puppy forever. He's not going to have the sort of energy and the need to chew and everything forever. So, and I don't want to be writing books forever. So I'm prepared to deal with that. But in terms of Chris Watts, he's not thinking that way. He's thinking, well, I've really had enough of this. And he may not be thinking murderous thoughts, but he's kind of thinking, this is a bit too much for me. I know what I want. I don't know if she's going to accept me, but I know what I want. I want her. I want Nicole Kissinger. And progressively, it's like the children are in the way. Now, the interesting thing is, this was Chris Watts' last experience of his children prior to that very last weekend he spent with them. So in other words, this is the last time where he's sort of one-on-one with his girls. This is June 26th. And it's like, that's like his last one-on-one memory with Bella and Celeste, which is it nice being with them? Is it nice being a dad? Is it nice, the whole thing? And what he's saying here, that the kids are out of control, doesn't sound like it's nice, does it? Now, in a book that I wrote in the Two-Face series, it's the third book in the series called Two Pollyannas. That actually deals with the Watts family, but from the perspective of the children. So it's looking into the family through the eyes of each of the children. And it really is quite an interesting way of looking at the case. And right now I'm uploading the audiobook of that onto the Patreon channel. What I can also tell you on Patreon is I'm working on a YouTube studio where I'll be addressing the camera. You won't just hear the sort of disembodied voice. I'll actually be talking into the camera from time to time in a sort of series TCRS face-to-face. I'll be addressing some of your questions. And that'll be on Patreon only, and on some of the higher tiers on Patreon. I think to start off with the $5 tier or something like that. I'd rather have a fairly small audience to deal with in the beginning, and if it suits me, then I might do it with the other patrons, and if that goes okay, then I might be addressing you guys on YouTube. So something to bear in mind for the future. Something else that I can tell you is on Patreon this weekend I'll be reviewing the Dateline documentary on Laurie Vallow and Chad Daybell. That'll be a 3-part series, as I say, starting this weekend. And I'll just be sort of going through the documentary. It's around about 45 minutes long and dealing with it in 15-minute chunks. So if you haven't been able to see it, then check out the coverage on Patreon. If you have, you might find the analysis interesting as well. I'll be back with the hashtag 2 years ago today CW on June 30th, and until then, stay safe, look after yourselves, make sure you're eating well, sleeping enough, and just being aware of what is happening with coronavirus. It's some things of some concern happening around the world right now. Just make sure you're informed. They say forewarned is like being forearmed, isn't it? Okay, so until Tuesday the 30th next week, have a great weekend. If you haven't joined Patreon, consider checking it out there. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do, and I'll see you guys next time.